Show is being brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. So make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Plus, with the Vivid Seats app, it's easy to find awesome seats to any game. Download the app and enter promo code CHAMPS at checkout to get 10% off your first order. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll get back to your calls or to your calls in just a little bit. But for now, it's always great to have my next guest on the line. He worked with me here at ESPN, doing an outstanding job for us for many years. He's now an NBA writer, an NBA analyst, and insider for the New York Times. My buddy, the one and only Mark Stein, is on the line with yours truly right now. What's going on, buddy? How are you, man? How's everything?
Trade deadline week. Couldn't be better.
I know this much. First order of business, man. The only reason I'm bringing this up as a first note is because I just finished talking about it before we went to commercial break. You heard the news that John Wall slipped in his home and is out for the next 12 months as opposed to 6 or 8 months as originally speculated upon. So he's going to be out for at least a year, which means he'll be out for at least half of the season next year when a year where his new 4-year, $170 million contract kicks in. Your reaction to that, Mark Stein?
Well, firstly, it's sad. It's, obviously now this injury is way worse. I mean, and people with John Wall, they look at the money, so they're not going to feel sympathy. Oh, he got the bag. He's fine. Yes, he's got $170 million coming, but it's horrible for him. It's horrible for the Wizards. But if you want to cut to the chase, the question now will be, Ted Leonsis, the Wizards owner, has been adamant. They're not trading Bradley Beal.
Right.
They're not trading Otto Porter. We're not going to tank. I find the word tanking offensive. But if you're not going to see John Wall for at least a year now,
right?
They're going to have to really think, do we want to make Bradley Beal available? I don't think it happens this week. I don't think it happens before the deadline. If they made Beal available, they would have a line out the door.
Yes,
they're going to have to really look at what happens now.
I really, and that's where I'm at, Mark Stein, because the reason I asked that question, listen, first of all, nobody wishes injury upon anybody. And, John Wall actually is a really, really good guy, and he plays hard when he plays, and nobody's trying to dismiss that about him. But the flip side to it is that, my goodness, this has been going on for quite some time. I don't know how he got the money that he got based on his health, and now that he's gotten it, but he can't play. If I'm the Washington Wizards, I strongly do consider moving Beal. I open up the phone lines right now before the trading deadline, Mark, just to see what the price would be for him. Wouldn't you?
And look, the calls are coming in whether they want them or not. Teams are going to ask. They've been asking about Beal all season. My instinct is they're not going to be able to rush and put something together in the next 48 hours. Basically, the trade deadline's 2 days away now, Thursday at 3:00. But, we're going to be hearing more and more and more about teams trying to get Beal, and, can the Wizards find a new path? Because, this is a mess. It's sad.
Mark Stein, New York Times, right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Let's go into what's been transpiring over the last few days. Anthony Davis is the story of the day. We all know the story about Anthony Davis through Rich Paul basically stating to everybody he wants out. He's not going to sign an extension. He would prefer to be moved to the Los Angeles Lakers. We've learned that the Los Angeles Lakers have offered Kuzma and Ingram and Ball and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and 2 first-round picks. How do you see this thing panning out?
I don't think we're going to get a trade this week. Now, again, there's still those 48 hours, and it's a one-team race right now. It's just the Lakers banging on the Pelicans' door, but no matter what the Lakers can throw at them, and even if the Lakers decide to submit to every wish New Orleans has, you just can't convince me, and I have a feeling New Orleans feels the same way. You can't convince me that offer won't be there in May and June. The Lakers can say all they want, we're going to move on to other targets. Who is believing that? They're not moving on to other targets. Anthony Davis is the guy LeBron James wants to play next to. He's the guy that makes the most sense there. The Lakers, it's going to be there. It's going to be there for the Pelicans if they wait, and then obviously you bring in Boston, and it becomes even more of a frenzy. I still think that's the way the Pelicans are strongly leaning. But again, you and I have both been doing this too long to, box ourselves into a corner on Tuesday. 48 hours to go. Let's see if the Lakers can change their mind. Let's see if Rich Paul can change their mind. Let's see if the Pelicans get to a point where they say, you know what, we don't want this circus anymore. We want to move on. But I think it's better for them to wait, and I think that's how they see it as well.
Mark Stein, my compelling question to you would be this. Why do you think the Pelicans are holding out? Is it truly because, okay, we can wait and teams like Boston and others will come down the pike once the summer arrives? Or is it because the league, team executives from other places, opposing agents, etc., everybody's in Dell Demp's ear, letting him know, you do this, you'll be a fool, and you'll probably lose your job? What do you think is the biggest reason that something hasn't happened?
I don't think it's that. I do think it's twofold. Look, Boston is surely telling them, just wait, and we'll give you Tatum. Or I would think the Pelicans are saying, let's let Boston get in this, and we'll ask for Tatum and see how willing the Celtics are to do it. I mean, there are varying reports whether Boston is willing to surrender Tatum for Anthony Davis, and that will surely fold into, can they keep Kyrie Irving as well? And the Celtics would presumably have a better idea of that in May and June than they do now. But there's also the Knicks. What if your Knicks win the draft lottery, get the rights to Zion Williamson, and can now put Zion together with some of their young assets? The Knicks have 6-7 first-round picks over the next 5 years. What if the Knicks are willing to make a Zion-based offer for Anthony Davis in May because they've won the lottery? Now, if you're the Pelicans, that might be more appealing than what the Lakers can offer. So it just makes more sense for them to wait. The options will be better in May and June. They will. When
you bring up Zion Williamson, though, that's just one player. And obviously Porzingis is gone, and you would not have attracted a marquee free agent as of yet let alone two, if you're the New York Knicks. So it's basically Zion and a bunch of parts that don't even matter for the Pelicans. They would value that.
They got Knox. They got Ntilikina. They got Trier, and they have
Mark Stein.
A handful
of... Hold on, Mark Stein. You and I have been friends for many years. Did you just bring up Frank Ntilikina? Did you just do that?
Come on, you're not writing him off already, man.
You know I have. You know me, Mark. You know I'm no fan of Frank Ntilikina. Come on, Mark. You know me.
Right. If Frank Ntilikina is as bad as you say, let's put him off to the side. Forget I mentioned it. I apologize.
All right.
Still, Zion Williamson, Kevin Knox, and more first-round picks, that's an offer worth considering if you're the Pelicans. I'm not saying 100% do it, but I would want the option. I would want to put that on my board up against whatever the Lakers can offer and whatever Boston can offer. So all I'm saying is if you wait till May or June, you're going to have more options. And I think the Pelicans know it.
We're talking to NBA writer and insider extraordinaire Mark Stein. Used to work for ESPN, now working for the New York Times. He's right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. So if you break this down, Mark, what do you happen to believe is a more likely scenario based on the scuttlebutt, what you're hearing? Do you think he'll end up in L.A. by this summer? Do you think he'll end up in Boston or someplace else? Do you believe that New York legitimately has a shot and that it could be Kyrie along with Anthony Davis as opposed to Kyrie along with Kevin Durant coming to New York? What do you think is the most likely scenario for Anthony Davis?
If it gets to the summer, I think Boston has a tremendous opportunity unless, look, we've heard consistently now for a week that Anthony Davis doesn't want to be in Boston. His father came out and put his name on it and said,
yep,
I don't want to see my son in Boston. So let's say we don't get a trade this week and we get to May and June and the Celtics now finally can really dig into this. If that drumbeat gets louder and the message just keeps getting louder that Anthony Davis wants nothing to do with Boston, we know Danny Ainge has the soul of a gambler, but is he really going to be willing to risk his best trade assets for someone he doesn't know if he can keep? I mean, that becomes an incredibly risky proposition. But look, I do think the Knicks have a chance here if they win the draft lottery. I'm speaking only when it comes comes to Anthony Davis. But look, they just cleared $70 million plus in cap space. And when you talk to teams around this league, they believe the Knicks are a legit threat to get Durant and or Kyrie. I mean,
why do they think that? Why do they think that, Mark? Why do they think that the Knicks are a legitimate threat to get Kevin Durant and Kyrie, aside from money, aside from having the cap space? What's the reason for New York? Because you know how New Yorkers are, and ever since Dolan arrived, they're perpetually depressed. Why should New York Knicks fans believe that the Knicks legitimately have a shot at those two guys?
I have my weekly newsletter coming out today, and I basically wrote that exact same thing. With James Dolan in charge, if you're going to take it a believe it when I see it approach, that's totally understandable. I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, history tells us, has anyone really wanted to go there over the last 20 years since they made the finals? I mean, it's going to have to be proven. All I can say is, though, when other teams watch the Knicks do what they did last week, when they come up with a trade that clears that much space, the Knicks rivals are the ones who are taking the stance of the Knicks don't make a move like that unless they know something. I mean, that is almost universally the reaction from other teams. The Knicks wouldn't have done what they did with Porzingis if they didn't have a strong sense that they're going to have a real shot at Durant and or Kyrie. And look, Golden State has been hearing for months, really since last season's finals, that the Knicks are the team that has the best shot to steal Durant. And I think they believe that more today than they ever have. Now, there's still a long season to go. Who knows what winning another championship would do? Maybe that makes it impossible for KD to leave. But we're all trying to step into somebody's head, and the only people who really know are Kevin Durant and his business partner, Rich Kleiman. They know, or at least probably have a good idea of what they're going to do in July. But the rest of us, we don't know, and we're going to have to wait and see. But just other teams take the Knicks seriously, whether Knicks fans do or not.
What is Scott Perry, the general manager for the New York Knicks? Enlighten us about what his relationship is with Kevin Durant.
Yeah, look, Scott Perry was with Durant in Seattle. Royal Ivey is on the Knicks bench and is one of Kevin Durant's best friends. One of the expiring contracts they just got, DeAndre Jordan, is another one of Kevin Durant's best friends, and he's a Knick right now. Now, it would be really complicated because of DeAndre's cap hold for the Knicks to find a way to keep DeAndre there and bring Durant in. But if you dig into it, there are no shortage of connections that us media types love to analyze and talk about when it comes to the Knicks and Durant. So, I mean, he's got allies there. There's no question.
Why is it even a consideration, considering the fact that Kyrie Irving has become the show, the absolute show that he is? Why is it even a consideration that the Boston Celtics could lose him?
Well, look, I mean, I think that requires us to, again, try to get into somebody's head and to sit here and pretend like I can tell you I know exactly what Kyrie or Durant is thinking would be a huge exaggeration.
Right.
But all the things that Kyrie has said this month, I mean, they've certainly given the Celtics pause. I mean, he went from at the start of the season saying, I'm going to stay, to don't even ask me till July 1st. I'm sick of talking this. And basically that translates to all options are open. So is he unhappy there? Is the weight of expectations that have really afflicted that whole Boston team, is it weighing on Kyrie? Does he want to go somewhere else? I mean, look, the Knicks and the Nets, both New York teams, have believed quietly for a long time that they're going to have a shot at Kyrie Irving in free agency. It's not like the teams interested in him heard what he said in October and said, oh, well, we got no shot. Kyrie's staying in Boston. I mean, these teams are still going to try. And, as you know, it's a long season, and where a guy is in October, not always where he is in July.
Is this just about Kyrie potentially choosing to leave Boston, or is this about Danny Ainge might not minding that Kyrie Irving leaves Boston? I only ask that question because as we look at the team assembled, and I've thrown this out there, of course Terry Rozier is not Kyrie Irving. That's not the way to look at it. The way to look at it to me is he's a guy that thinks he should be starting in this league. Some people would agree with him, and he would be at the very least $100 million cheaper than Kyrie Irving. If anybody was shrewd enough to think along those lines, it would be Danny Ainge, wouldn't you say?
But if Danny Ainge really took that stance, if Danny Ainge had gone sour on Kyrie, he would have tried to trade him before this deadline. And again,
That's right.
I throw in that disclaimer that I've thrown in about 7 times now. We still got 48 hours to go before the deadline and rule nothing out because this league is absolutely nuts. But, if Danny Ainge doesn't trade Kyrie Irving, and we've had zero, I want to underline, we've had zero evidence to suggest that he's going to trade him this week before the deadline, that would make you think, no, the Celtics fully expect to keep Kyrie Irving, and he's a big part of their plans. I mean, he wouldn't want, in other words, he wouldn't want to lose him for nothing. And if there is no Kyrie Irving trade this week and Kyrie goes to free agency, he's at risk for losing him for nothing. So, Danny Ainge is too smart to let that happen.
Mark Stein, New York Times, right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. The Clippers, we haven't mentioned them too much because obviously they're not players in this NBA trading deadline situation. They're holding all of their chips until this summer when they believe they've got a legitimate shot at Kawhi Leonard. Is it possible that come end of July, we're sitting here talking about Anthony Davis being somewhere else, Kyrie Irving being somewhere else, Kawhi Leonard being somewhere else, all right, Kevin Durant being somewhere else, and nobody is in the Los Angeles Lakers uniform?
I mean, I think it is possible. I think it has to be a possibility on the board, but there are some people around the league who watched the events of last week when Kyrie said what he said and have watched all month as Kyrie and LeBron have seemingly lobbed Valentines back and forth to each other about how much they miss each other. Now there's a sense that what if the Lakers could get Anthony Davis and Kyrie, and they're the ones who steal Kyrie away from the Celtics and not the Knicks. So, I mean, there are 6, 7, 8 really, really good free agents this summer. It's going to be an absolute frenzy because it's this small clutch of 4 or 5 teams that are going after them all. And let's also not forget the 2020 free agent class is really weak. So these teams have to get stuff done this summer. And, you mentioned the Clippers. I mean, they're going after 2 biggies. The Clippers, like the Knicks, have never, they have not been successful in free agency. So they've got to get 1 marquee free agent before I'm ready to say they can get 2. But Kawhi Leonard, I mean, every time I am in the Clippers' orbit all season long, I mean, their confidence in terms of getting Kawhi Leonard, you can feel it when you're around that team. They think they're getting Kawhi.
It's huge, Mark. I've been there. They are incredibly confident that they've got a big-time shot at getting Kawhi Leonard in a Clippers uniform, and that's what I think is going to be interesting. But just to make sure we explain it for those when you bring up Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving potentially in the Lakers uniform, for those who may not understand, if you're getting Anthony Davis, it'll be via a trade. That won't compromise you to the extreme.
They got to trade for Davis and sign Kyrie.
There you go. There you go.
Anthony Davis isn't a free agent until 2020, but there are people who believe that is the grand Laker plan.
Before I let you go, 2 teams that come to my mind as well that have flown under the radar as it pertains to potential moves that, that we can't ignore. Brooklyn Nets, they could do some things. Talk to me about what they'll be able to do this summer, and also the Philadelphia 76ers, simply because of the assets they have available to them.
Yeah, I mean, the Nets, as I said, like the Knicks, they have big dreams in free agency too. They're obviously farther along than Knicks in their rebuild, which is amazing when you think about the state of that team when Sean Marks became the GM. But, they will definitely go after Kyrie this summer as well. I think Jimmy Butler is a name. Obviously that relates to Philadelphia. Do the Sixers keep him? Will the Nets try to go after Kyrie and Jimmy Butler together? That scenario has been thrown around. So, look, July is going to be delicious. I mean, we still got a trade deadline, All-Star weekend, the playoffs, the finals. I mean, I don't want to skip ahead and act like the next 4 months don't have a lot of important stuff. But this July will be as anticipated as any free agent summer that I can remember.
That is fair to say, but since the trading deadline is the one that's only 48 hours away, or at least 49 hours, or 48 hours and 40 minutes away now, if the Lakers end up not doing this Anthony Davis thing, which we're not pulling this off, which we both suspect will be the case, how should we feel about it? How should Los Angeles Lakers fans feel?
I mean, they got to be nervous because they know that means the Celtics will be in and the Knicks will be in, and presumably teams that we're not even talking about will try to jump into this. But, the Lakers do have – I'm higher on the Lakers' assets than most people. I do think that when you put all their young players and draft picks together,
yeah,
it is a package that is tempting. So with LeBron James there, with Rich Paul there, not going to rule them out. I'm not going to say if the Lakers can't get this done this week that it's over, but certainly it becomes a lot tougher, a lot trickier, a lot scarier for them.
I love Kuzma. I love Josh Hart and Zubac, that big center. I like him as well. As far as I'm concerned, anybody else is expendable. But then again, for Anthony Davis, I guess everybody has to be expendable, right?
Whatever it takes to get Anthony Davis, you do it.
Mark Stein, appreciate you, buddy. Keep up the great work, and we'll talk soon, all right?
Always good to catch up.
You too, buddy. You take it easy. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. You heard Mark Stein break it down. Now we'll get to you, and you'll hear me break it down as well. So don't touch that dial. Stick around. It's Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, Peloton is a game-changing indoor cycling bike that brings the energy of live studio classes right to your home anytime you want, winter or summer, rain or shine. Whether it's a monthly challenge to meet your goals, a training program for your next race, or setting a new personal best, the Peloton bike will make you want to show up and keep climbing the live leaderboard year-round. On average, Peloton members are riding their bikes more every year and crushing their personal records along the way. So learn more about the Peloton bike at onepeloton.com or visit your local showroom. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. More of the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio and ESPN News.